Hi guys, coming at you from behind the scenes. So this is me making a Pantser article compilation thing, and I've been doing things like adding texts and transitions and stuff in preparation to make the deep dive. So this is like an experiment kind of thing, and I hope you enjoy. So let's get into it, I guess. This is going to be a wild ride, I assure you. Like and subscribe if you haven't done that yet. That would be very, very nice if you do that. Okay, let's get on with it. I'm a pantser, meaning I write from the seat of my pants, meaning I don't do any planning beforehand, I just start writing. So I found this article that says how to pants a novel, tips for writing as a pantser. Now, I thought, as someone who, I feel like I've pretty much mastered the craft of pantsing for me personally. So I thought either I would find new tips or I would agree with these tips. Because these are, not these, this is a writing advice article. So if I claim that I have mostly mastered the art of pantsing, then maybe I would most likely agree with what they are saying here. Of course, I have to say everyone is different. So who are they writing these for? Are they writing these for pantsers or people who don't know if they are pantsers? We're going to see. So, how to pants a novel. Tips for writing as a pantser. It's the title here. Let's see. I can't tell when this was written. Maybe it says so at the bottom. We'll get there when we get there. Are you a plotter or a pantser? Right here. If you're a new writer, it won't be long until someone asks you this question. Well, I actually don't see this question unless it's another writer asking the question. It's not particularly that the writer would ask a particular writer the question, but more like a writer would ask on social media to a bunch of people. And then you're like, maybe I need to think about that. But I haven't had anyone ask me this question. Like, I don't actually meet writers. So I can't say I met a writer for the first time and they asked me this question. Or they didn't ask me this question. Do you get asked this question as a writer? Like if you're out and about and you're a writer and then they ask you? I don't think people who aren't writers don't even know plotter and pantser. I mean, I didn't know plotter and pantser for a long time, even after getting into writing. So, while the word plotter might be easy to figure out, you might wonder, what is a pantser? I did actually wonder that. I don't know why my voice is doing this weird high-pitched thing. Pantsing and plotting are two different methods of writing a novel. While both are valid, figuring out which one you are can help you approach your writing project in the most efficient way. So what does it mean to pants a novel, and how does a writer learn to do it? In this post, we'll share some strategies for those taking the pantser route for the first time. Okay, so they are saying it very clearly right here. They're saying in this post, we'll share some strategies for those taking the pantser route for, this is really suspicious. Look how that is so close to if you wanted to select this for the first time. And this ad is so close. And they have a white background around it so that you can't see where it begins. That is very sneaky. Okay, strategies for those taking the pantser route for the first time. So I would suspect that these are tips for people taking the pantser route for the first time. So these are going to be for the newbies. These are going to be for people who don't really know what the heck pantsing is, but they think they might be this person. They think they might want to try it. but they don't know how to go about it. It just feels kind of daunting for them or something like that. And the tips are going to be to help alleviate that feeling of dauntingness and make it easier for them to become a pantser who can get work done. Okay, that's what we're expecting. A lot of articles like to say this is what they're going to do. Like they're going to say, I'm going to give a 12-step guide. And then they don't give steps. They just give 12 tips. You know? So we'll see if this one lives up to its name. I mean, it doesn't. Tips for writing as a pantser. It doesn't say, though, in the title, tips for writing as a pantser for the first time. Maybe they couldn't do that. Maybe they should have said tips for writing as newbie pantsers or something like that. I don't know. So we'll begin. What is a pantser? Now they're getting to the definition, making that clear in the beginning, which is good. The term pantsing refers to the phrase, fly by the seat of your pants. Pantsing is simply writing a novel by making it up as you go without an outline. This kind of writer is the exact opposite of a plotter who may use an outline or a beat sheet to plan their novel before they start writing. That is true. That is exactly what I do. To better understand plotting and pantsing, imagine the writing journey as a cross-country road trip. Okay. A plotter is someone who maps out the entire journey from start to finish before they ever start the car. I guess I'm kind of I'm a pantser when it comes to writing, but I'm a plotter when it comes to trips. I need to know exactly where we're going to be and when and where. Otherwise, it just makes me feel anxious not knowing where we're going. Unless my partner says something like, I'm going to take you to this place and we're going to just figure out what to do with lunch. And I'm like, okay, I'll leave it up to him because so far it's been great. So if I can trust that, you know. But if I can't, then I'd rather know exactly where I'm going, when, what time we're doing what, and that sort of thing. Not down to the minute or anything, at least to the hour. At least to the hour, maybe 2 hours, depends on what we're doing. Anyway, so a plotter has the map. The plotter knows, how far they will drive every day, where they will stop to eat, and where they will stop to refill the gas tank. The pantser simply gets in the car and starts driving, knowing they will figure it out as they go. Even if they take a few wrong turns, they know they'll eventually reach the destination. That's exactly what I wouldn't do if I'm actually traveling, which is kind of interesting, I guess. I'd rather pants my writing, but I don't want to pants my traveling. Or anyway, so some writers, here they are. They're going to mention the hybrid, which is good. Not many articles mention this hybrid. Some writers consider themselves a pantser or a mix of a plotter and a pantser. To continue our road trip example, a pantser might pin down a few key stops along the way, but will figure out the rest as they go. This road trip is such a good analogy. Who is this person writing this article? Writing Mastery Academy. I don't know who the author is, but maybe we'll see that later. Sometimes they have it at the bottom. Where are we? Just because a pantser doesn't outline before they write their first draft, doesn't mean they don't know where their story is going. While it may sound disorganized, some of the most famous best-selling authors use the pantser approach, including Meg Cabot, Neil Gaiman, and Stephen King, to name a few. You know, the first time I heard that Stephen King is a pantser, I felt kind of validated, you know. Because sometimes pantsers were told that, you should outline, or, you know, but this is the way that we write. This is the way that works for us. But no, you need an outline, or you need to use a, one of those beat sheet things, those things that they use for screenwriting and stuff like that. But no, it doesn't work like that for us. And then come to find out, some of the most famous writers out there are pantsers. That's pretty validating. Stephen King, I mean, He writes those novels with those storylines by the seat of his pants. Well, the benefits of writing as a pantser. Okay, well, getting into the benefits. One of the biggest benefits of pantsing is that the writing process feels much less rigid. You've crafted an outline. You might feel compelled to stick to it, thinking you have your story mapped out and you can't change directions along the way. Rigidity can destroy the creative process, prevent you from following through new ideas, could lead to a more compelling story. Okay. When pantsing a novel, there's more room for inspiration to roam. Writing without a roadmap allows you to turn down hidden paths and flip over rocks to see what is underneath. It's stopping into a new story that you'd never noticed before. When pantsing, you never know what you might uncover that you wouldn't have if you had stuck to an outline. That is true. So they're basically talking about this roadmap, using the roadmap analogy still, and they're saying that you could be walking along this road or driving down this road, and then you see a store. Oh wait, what is that new store over there? I'm gonna go check it out. And oh, look what I found in this fancy little new store that I never noticed before. I don't know if that's exactly what's happening, because when I'm pantsing, well, anyway, that was their analogy. Let's move on, and then maybe I should respond at the end. We'll see. Even more so, pantsers allow themselves to be surprised by what they cover as they let the story unfold on the page before them. This creates an organic flow that allows the story to tell itself. It is flexible and surprising, and the reader would benefit from the organic nature of the writing. Interesting. Okay. Allow themselves to be surprised by what they cover as they let the story unfold on the page before them. I think, aren't they talking about how, characters start doing things on their own? And it's like, I'm just, running after them, writing down whatever they're leaving behind, and trying to keep up. I don't know if that creates an organic flow that allows the story to tell itself. Maybe that's what that is. It's like when you're writing, when you're pantsing, it's like there's suddenly this moment. In the beginning, it's a little hard, but it's suddenly this moment. Maybe it's around the middle part of the beginning part. Suddenly this moment where it just sort of clicks for me, and then it just flows. And everything is working out. Everything is just completely working out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is so great. Oh, wow. Look at this. Look at how far I'm getting. Oh my gosh. Look at what is happening. All this cool stuff is happening. And maybe that's what they're talking about here. That pantsers allow themselves to be surprised by what they cover as they let the story unfold on the page before them. Maybe that's kind of what they're talking about. That what happens after it clicks and then it just flows out. Maybe that's what that's about. Now that we've compared plotters and pantsers, let's look at some easy steps for writing without an outline. Okay, now they're going to get into the steps. I wish people didn't use the word steps, but maybe these are steps. Because look, pantser is writing by the seat of the pants, right? There aren't steps, or are there? The writing process for pantsers: start with an idea. I mean, this is the same with everyone. This is the same with all writers. Whether you're a plotter or pantser, you start with an idea. Start with an idea. They have a link here. And then think about where you want to take that idea. You might not know where you're going with the idea, and in order to figure out that What? Wait, hold on. English crazy. Hold on, wait. You might not know where you're going with the idea, and in order to figure that, you must simply sit down and write every day. Okay. There's several things wrong with this sentence. First, grammatics are wrong. come on, you're a writing website. You need to be careful of these things. Oh my gosh, I find it funny when these writing websites, I'm starting to speak like Bugs Bunny, or what is it? Not Bugs Bunny. Elmer Fudd. Whiting websites. These whiting websites have typos, and they're whiting websites. Whiting websites. In order to figure that out, you must simply sit down and write every day. The writing every day thing is a kind of a controversial tip in that it works with some people and some people's schedules, but it doesn't work for other people and other people's schedules. Or your mental capacity in your brain that you need. Some people might feel like I have some mental issues that I need to deal with and I cannot write today. But I feel forced that I have to write every day because all these famous people are saying to write every day. All these writing advice articles are saying to write every day. And I'm not writing every day. So that is bad. So now I feel bad about myself. There could be people who start thinking like that. So it's not good to say write every day. Write it often. Write as often as you can would be a better phrase to use here. These writing advice articles, they like to say write every day as if everyone can do that. As if. I know they mean to practice, okay? I know that what they mean is that you need to practice. But you don't have to say write every day. You just say in practice. And then what that entails is something like, you write as often as you can, considering your time schedule and your mental abilities, and stuff like that. So they need to really say it like that, not just put it down into these 3 words, write every day. That's an issue. So moving on, let's move on. The more consistently you write, the more the idea will reveal itself and develop. You're winging it and allowing inspiration to find you along the way simply by showing up to the blank page with your idea. That's a bad idea. I'm going to get into that. Hold on. The idea can come from anywhere. A newspaper article, a story on the evening news, or a conversation you overhear at the airport. As if people go to the airport so often, do they? I don't. Maybe people in the States do more often than I do, because I live in Japan. I don't need to go to the airport so often. I know people in the States, some people, they need to use the airport to travel to their work even, like the local airport and stuff like that. I don't know. Okay, so it says you're winging it and allowing inspiration to find you along the way simply by showing up to the blank page with your idea. That is a very, very bad idea. Okay, I know it might, okay. I think it's a very bad idea. I think it's a very bad idea because it can give you a block in your writing. Why did that turn gray suddenly? It can give you a block in your writing. You see a blank page and you feel anxious or something. I need to write something, but I can't think of anything. This blank page is staring me down. So, saying that it needs to be okay. I don't think you should have a blank page. When you're pantsing, you should not have a blank page. Now, what I'm going to tell you is a little bit different. You could call it a note outline method for pantsers, okay? So, okay, listen carefully. This is what I do, and this is what I found works for me as a pantser. Now, what you want to do is that, let's say you come to a point in your writing, and you're writing, and then suddenly the flow just kind of stops because you're getting tired. You're just getting tired, but you still have some ideas of how the story is going to move forward. So you're not just going to just close the document and say, okay, that's problem for tomorrow me. It's not problem for tomorrow you, okay? You're going to not exit the document. You're going to have, think of just some easy phrases. Very, 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 very easy phrases. It can be stupid phrases too. Like, let's see. Let's give an example, okay? Um, let's just give an example from something's beeping somewhere. It's probably the rice is done. Anyway, what I was going to say is that an example would be like if I would take, like if I would take my current story that I'm rewriting, where did that come out from? Which is about a blue bipedal feline struggling survival in a world and trying to get revenge on her enemies. And what I would do is that I have a scene where her name is Pinty, and Pinty has arrived at the first human village, and she is going to get some help. And that's where I end it, because I'm tired, and I don't want to move on anymore today. But I don't want to forget the ideas that I do have. Like, I have a few ideas, just a few. And so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to the blank page spot, and I'm going to write things like a sort of stream of events, I would say. So, like Pinty. So so the story has ended at the moment with Pinty followed the sorcerer into the village. Period. That's where it ends. And so the continuation of that would be a simple line like, Pinty doesn't trust sorcerer. Pinty sorcerer have conversation. Conversation is good. They go through crowd. So many people, lots of people. Show what people look like, what they wear. And then the next line is, so many people, they get separated. Pinty is lost. She tries to find her way out. She can't. Meets mercenaries. Mercenaries want something from her. Mercenaries or thieves or whatever. And the next line, confrontation with Pinty and thieves, some fighting, punching, kicking. And if at those points that I'm creating these lines that I have inspiration for some dialogue, I just put the dialogue in there. Pinty Colin, I don't trust you, or whatever. And then sorcerer Colin, that's okay. You can follow me or not. But I can take you to an inn where you'll be safe. Something like that. So it's just very simple. It's like an outline, but not really. And then I write all that out. And then once my brain feels satisfied, I close document and leave it for next time writing. And so when the next time comes up, I don't have a blank page. I can just start off where I was thinking, oh yes, that's right, I was thinking that I'm going to have them have this conversation. But the thing is, okay, I'm still a pantser. This is not an outline. I had this idea, but they don't have to have a conversation. It's very, very crowded and noisy. They don't have to have a conversation, just a simple little conversation, just very short. So I delete all that other conversation that I had, and then just make a simple little conversation, just a short one. And then she gets separated in the crowd. That stays. And then she gets stuck in an alley. She doesn't know how to get out. So then she meets the thief. And now the thief was going to be more of a punching, kicking kind of thing. But I make it a little bit more conversational, some mystery. There's something that the thief says that Pinty is like, wait a moment. You know about that? And the thief is like, everybody knows about that. You don't know about that? So now I'm doing the pantsing thing, right? I suddenly get an idea. Oh wait, I can do this in this scene. I can have the thief bring it out. Like, everybody knows this. It's a famous thing. And Pinty doesn't know it because she's never been outside. So, and that's how it goes. So then the pantsingness comes back in again, and whatever I had written the previous day can be overwritten. It can be overwritten completely too. But as long as I have something there and not a blank page, it feels better. You know, when you get back to the story, it feels a little bit better when you get back. So that is what I do, and you can try it. See if it works for you. It's just a little way to keep up the momentum when you get back onto your story and you're not left with a blank page. So I really do not think showing up to a blank page is a good idea. Okay. So that was a little bit of a interjection. I won't call what I gave to you a tip. It's not a tip. It's just something that I realize that I do, which helps me. And some people do it, but I don't know. We don't really talk about those things as pantsers. We don't really talk about methods because we don't really have methods. We don't think we have methods. So supposedly this article is going to give us methods. I'm drinking water, by the way, because I do a lot of talking. Okay, we're moving on. When you have an idea, explore that idea with curiosity. What might happen next? I need to take a breath. Don't overthink it too much. This will impede the flow of creativity. Just go with the flow. Start writing your thoughts about the idea and let the story take shape. Write quickly and don't edit your thoughts. All thoughts and ideas are worth considering. At this stage, the idea doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be discovered and captured on the page. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what I do. I don't go back and edit unless it's something that will hinder the flow. As in, I've wrote something completely outrageous and weird, and if I don't change that, I can't even continue on the flow. There are things like that come up. I can't give you an exact example. Although I am a true lover of examples, writing advice articles don't give many examples for some reason. But I can't come up with any examples. Okay, maybe like an example would be like if I said, Pinty doesn't know the language of the outside. And I'm like, wait. She does. She does because she was taught in school and everything. What a weird thing to say, Pantser Brain. So I delete that because it's just inconsistent to the world or whatever, or it's just a silly little thing that I don't need to add in. Like maybe the Pinty and Sorcerer are talking, and then a little boy comes up and asks them if they want to buy strawberries. And I'm like, do I really need to have this in here? No. It's a nice little thing. But no, I don't need to have this in here. Why did I suddenly add this in? It's a tangent, so I delete it and then I move on. So I do a little bit of editing, but not like a lot of editing. If I immediately know it's something that I really don't want in the story, like what was I thinking kind of things. What was I thinking? Like sometimes a Pantser Brain, there's just weird things. You're gonna find moments of being like, what was I? What am I thinking? What am I thinking? This is such is so weird. Why am I bringing this up here? So you should just get rid of it if you want to. If you don't want to get rid of it and just leave it, that's fine. But yeah, I do a little bit of editing, just a little bit. But usually for the first draft, I just write, and there's so many plot holes, but no, I just write. I'm going to deal with them in editing. So, okay. Know your characters, okay? Pantsers don't always start with an idea. They might start with a character and build a story around a character. Some characters are so compelling that it's impossible for a pantser not to sit down trying to figure out what their story is. In an interview at the end of the audiobook version of The Four Winds, author Kristen Hanna explained, "I like to put my characters in the darkest possible moment of their lives and ask them to not only survive but also thrive somehow. If you are inspired by a compelling character, ask yourself what their conflict will be and then build your story, letting the details of the story unfold as you write." I don't know why Kristen Hanna is here. Is she a pantser? I don't know. I don't know. They're making it sound like she is, but I don't know. Yeah, I can say some stories don't always start with like a plot type of idea. I write character-driven stories. I usually think of like a character in some type of situation, and then I feel compelled to write their story. So there was this one character. This was very interesting for me because usually I am thinking about a character around one of my worlds that I created, but there was this one character that popped up. Okay, he was wearing a suit, and it was dark and rainy. He was bowing his head, supposedly at the lowest point of his life. He's wearing this silky top hat. He was once somebody, and he doesn't even have an umbrella. He's out in the rain. He looks so just absolutely miserable. And the setting is some kind of steampunk type of world, and he was once somebody, but he's now at the lowest of lows. And I was like, wait, who is this guy? Who is this guy? What is his story? What is his name? Where did he come from? How did he get to this point? And so I immediately had this idea that he was this charismatic, just has lots of friends, and he's very successful in something, and just he made the worst mistake of his life, and now he's at this point, and it's no one else's fault but his, and that is why he's at the lowest of his lows. And I'm like, this is interesting. This character suddenly popped out of nowhere, and this character doesn't belong in any of my worlds. No, I don't think he does. So I ended up writing this story that takes place in a completely different world. So this character's name is Jack Oswald, and I thought, okay, Jack, tell me, where does your story begin? And so I just wrote out his name, and then I found out that he has a curse that makes him hear people's first thoughts that come to their mind, their immediate thoughts, and then he's having headaches from this, and he is at the hospital trying to get treatment, and no one believes him. So then I'm like, wait, where does this curse come from, Jack? Why are we where are we going? What is your profession? What do you do? He's an art gallery owner. I'm like, okay, you're an art gallery owner. Okay, well, what are you? He is actually kind of suspicious because he does really suspicious things behind closed doors, and he has weird friends too, and then he also attracts weird people, and then he suddenly has an old childhood friend that he betrayed, and who was now out after him for revenge. So okay, that is interesting. And there are dragons in this world. Oh, really? There are. Okay. So then I'm just following the story. I'm just writing whatever is coming at me. It's very weird when that happens, because it's my story. It's like I'm the author, but it's like, how is this happening? Sometimes I think, like, how is this happening? It's like he's a real person. He's telling me that this is my story. This is where I come from. This is where I live. These are the people. And I'm like, hold on, Jack. Wait. And then it just keeps going. It's so weird how that happens sometimes. Very weird. So I would say, but I quite like that story. How it turned out and everything. All the twists and turns. He is an unreliable character in that he lies to himself, he lies to his friends, all over the place. He lies to everyone else to hide this truth, which he's been trying to sort of avoid his entire life, but now it's come back to haunt him in ways that he probably never imagined. It was wild. So, if you want to experience something like that, if a character says, hey, look at me, write my story, you're going to want to do that. You're really going to want to do that. You're going to have a great time. They're going to give you a time. Okay, next it says, be open to new inspiration. See, these are not steps. These are tips. Okay, I wish people would stop using the word steps and use tips, because, you know, I think they're using steps because they think that people are looking for steps when they're searching online, but people look for tips too. So I think saying tips is just completely fine. Well, that's my idea. That's what I think that they're doing. Be open to new inspiration. Following a new idea is an intrinsic part of the Panther's creative process. Plotters are struck by a sudden brand new idea. They may fear it will lead their novel, of course. Writer who is discovering the story. By the way, Panthers are also called sometimes discovery writers. Discovering the story will be more open to following the idea to see where it leads. The panther may soon discover that the novel they thought they were writing is not the novel they end up writing at all. Following inspiration often leads you to an even more compelling story when you allow yourself to follow where the plot threads or characters want to lead you. You may end up with a great story you wouldn't have otherwise written. That's exactly what I've just talked about. Now I want to mention something here, because they're making it sound like that pantsers have an idea in the beginning, like the beginning idea, where the story is going to start and stuff like that. I usually, and then, okay, yeah, just go with the flow, let the story take shape, all that stuff. They make it sound like that you're just writing without any goal in mind. But I have talked to some writers. Some writers agree with me in that they have a vague idea of what's going to happen in the end. Not all writers, but some writers, okay? So I usually have an idea of what I want to have happen at the very end. This is at the very, very end, what is going to happen to the character. I usually have that idea. And so the way I write is like I write towards the end. Anything can happen in the middle. It just needs to get to the end. It just needs to somehow get there. And I do manipulate it a little bit so that it gets towards there to the end, so the character doesn't go off on a weird tangent, okay? That he doesn't just run off. I don't let Jack run off, okay? Like, I have this goal for him that he needs to get to this point at the end. And sometimes, okay, so for Jack's case, I didn't know what exactly the end was going to be until around the middle part. I'm like, okay, I think, actually, when I found out what his truth was, that he was hiding and trying to lie to himself about, when I found out what his truth was, I thought, okay, so we are going to go towards this truth. That's what's going to happen at the end. So that's when I had that idea. But sometimes I have the idea at the very, very beginning. Like, okay, I have an idea, vague idea, this character, vague idea kind of what's going to happen, the beginning, middle, and the end. But the end is definitely, I want this definitely to happen at the end. So like Pinty's story, I know, I mean, this is a rewrite, so it's a little bit different. But even when I was first writing it, I had an idea, okay, I want this twist to happen at the end. This is definitely going to happen. And for it to happen, certain things need to happen throughout the story, so I'm going to make sure they happen. But other than that, it can kind of do whatever it wants to do. So it's not like I'm just writing and I'm just like running off into the distance, riding off into the sunset. No, I'm not. So I'm not saying that my advice is to figure out what your ending is. No, that's not my advice. But just because you have thought of an ending doesn't suddenly make you a plotter. Okay, you're still pantsing towards the ending. So if it happens to be that way, like you happen to be like me, don't feel like, oh no, I am a plotter then if I have an ending in mind. No, that's not the case. Okay, so We're moving on. Create a simple organizational system to track your story. Okay. While pantsers don't follow a rigid outline as they write, it's still a good idea to keep track of important events, plot points, and character arcs in some sort of simple format. Just because you're a pantser doesn't mean you can't keep notes. Right, okay. Even if you are a firm pantser, you may find it helpful to keep some sort of system that allows you to take a quick glance back at your work. This allows you to track your progress and make the revision process much easier. Okay. There are a few ways this can be done. Create a second document in which you can jot down the highlights of the day's writing session to help you keep track of where you are in the story. You can do that if you want to. I am not going to ever do that because if I have a good writing session, I don't want to go back and analyze that writing session because I know I'm going to start seeing the plot holes and all the mistakes, and I'm going to feel like I need to go back, edit and fix it. But I can't go back and edit and fix it because I just need to get the story out because I'm a pantser and I need to just get it out. I can't stop and like do something like this. Maybe it helps some people. You can try it, but it doesn't really help me. Jot down ideas, notes, and changes on index cards you can easily move around and review as you write. You might even record ideas for future writing sessions on index cards to keep in mind as you write. I don't use index cards. I don't really like index cards, to be honest. It reminds me too much of when I was studying in school and I was writing the word on the front and the definition on the back. I don't really like index cards. But I do usually have a Word document titled Notes, and this usually contains a character name, a sort of brief description if I have one at the time, usually their age, and sometimes their relationship with the main character, sometimes where they live if I have that. Yeah, and also sometimes I have a list of places that the character visits. If they're traveling, I have the names of the places and like a little bit about the place. Just a little bit. Usually it's whatever I had already written in the story. I don't go beyond that unless I feel like I can, but I usually just leave it as like if I have a village filled with weird sorcerers who only communicate using signs, then that's what I'm going to write in the notes. I'm going to have village name and I'm going to say villager sorcerers only use signs to communicate, period, and that's it. I also might have, like, if I come up with a name for a magic system or something like that, then I might write a little bit about that. Sometimes I might even go back to my notes. Instead of having a writing session, I'll have a notes session and sort of like organize my notes a little bit and make it easy for me to read later and stuff like that. Usually when I write my notes, okay, it's how I organize my notes. Usually I write my notes in that if I were writing a blog. So like if I'm explaining it to someone, like character, so everything is organized. If I'm just writing it for myself, it's going to be all over the place. And I'm not going to thank myself later if it's all over the place. So I try to write as if I'm writing it for somebody, like a blog or something like that. So I'll have headlines, headings, big headings, small headings, underline things in bold, things in italics, make it like an article type of situation so that I can go back easily. I'm not speaking anymore. Okay. So I wouldn't use index cards. I mean, you can if you want to. I mean, it's not for me, but I use just a Word document. It's just another Word document. And it's easier to put it in a Word document because then if I'm looking for a particular word, like I remember this one character named Sarah, but I don't exactly remember what I said her last name was. And I knew I came up with it when I was writing my notes. So then I go to the Word doc and I look up Sarah and I'm like, oh, her name was Sarah something. Okay, and so now Miss something, how do you do, whatever I'm writing the story. Okay, next one says make a list of key points, subplots, and character arcs in your novel to help keep you on the path you want to follow. I wouldn't suggest people do this when they're writing the first draft. I would suggest that you do this when you're editing, when you're doing your first editing. Because as a pantser, if you do stop to do these things, you're going to have an outline. You're going to be starting to plan stuff. I would say, okay, so you could make little notes like if you're writing about a character in your notes, you could say something that he does in the plot. Like, I don't know, his magic explodes and he is suddenly wanted by police, or something like that. You put that right where the character name is written, or something like that. Because if you start writing out key points and subplots and character arcs, it sounds like you're trying to write an outline. So that is kind of a strange thing to suggest. But if you're, I usually know everything. I'm usually able to remember quite a bit of the story without having to do any of that kind of stuff. Any of this kind of key point subplot list kind of stuff. Because I'm on this flow, I'm just writing these characters, I'm on this flow writing their story, and so it's not like I'm going to forget. It's like when you read a book, you're not taking notes of the key points that happen in the book as you're reading it, right? You just remember it. So I usually just remember it. But if you're someone that has trouble with like remembering things in memory and stuff like that, or you just like the idea of having like lists and stuff, you can do that. It just doesn't work for me, and I would suggest against it, because if you're a pantser, you just want to keep with your flow. You don't want to go back over your writing if you can help it, especially the first draft. You can do it during your editing. I do a lot of that sort of thing. Key points and stuff like that, character arcs. Key points and subplots, not so much, but character arcs, yes. If I feel like it will affect the overall plot, sometimes I do those sort of things, but not often, actually. Keep a bulleted point list. Shouldn't it be bullet pointed list? Or bulleted list of what is happening in your story as you write it. You can, I would suggest against it, the same thing, because you don't want to disrupt your flow as a pantser. The flow is once you have it, you need to grab it, and you need to keep at it. You can't be doing these last two things. It might hinder you. I'm not saying that it definitely will hinder you, but it might hinder you. So you might not want to do that. Right, so. Okay, so I want to share with you something. Basically, if you want to make a list of key points and subplots, key ideas and stuff of the characters as you're working on the story, this is what you can do. So this is an example of my story, Alive at Dawn, and the way I have it is that I have the characters written out. We see Richard, we see Charcoal, in order of appearance, because I'm writing in this information as I'm writing the story, right? So as I'm writing the story, I say Richard, and then after I write for a bit and I feel like I can take a break, I go back and I write down the name, and also some stuff about him, some backstory, because this is actually a complementary novel to another novel I've already written, and so Richard's already appeared, so he does have some more backstory than some of the other characters might. And then I have all the other names. These appear more or less in order. Some of the names are together because they're related, like family and stuff like that. Then we have all these names. We have Michael, Rose, Albert, Belinda, and Adelina, Jeffrey, everyone. And then I usually, oh yes, I should mention, I usually add, like, if they're married or not married, their age, and like something about them, or something about what they look like, or some little quirk that I added into the story. I would probably put that here as well. Then I have places, so I have Wendelin, I have Coatsland, and then if I mention a main city or a main a main city or town or something, then I write that down here. Some of this stuff needs to be updated, actually. So I have all the countries, and since the story of Alive at Dawn takes place in Arkenland, I have more stuff for Arkenland. So these are all the states and some of the main cities and some towns that I mentioned. So I have the list like this. And so when I think, oh, I need to talk about Trumedy, where was this? Oh, it was a small town in the farthest north, and that's the only information I have. So then I realized that, oh, I can come up with some more stuff about Trumedy if I want to. And then when I do, I would write it down in here. So that's how I do the stuff. And then I also sometimes add in, like, if I make up a word or something, then I would put that here as well, sort of the word, and then like the definition and what the language is. And sometimes I have a little sort of like a timeline, like a history timeline, but usually the history timeline is very loose. Because I'm a pantser, I'm not really, But if I feel like I need to keep track of, like I mentioned, a war happened 30 years ago, maybe then I write down in my notes, a war happened 30 years ago, something like that. Yeah, so that's how I do it, and so you can do that as well if you want to. It's an example of what you can do, and I thought it was good to share here. So that's a little bit of an introduction, I don't know. Anyway, back to the rest of the video. I wish writing advice articles will stop telling you to do things and be more like it's a suggestion. Keep a bullet pointed list, make a list, jot down ideas. I'm like, it's like, this is what you got to do, otherwise you're not doing a pantsering properly. So that is definitely what you got to do. And I'm like, that's not really the case. You need to write it as suggestions, because, you might find out that these things hinder you, and then you're like, well, then maybe I'm not a pantser, now try plotting, and then maybe plotting doesn't work for you. Then I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? So keep your end goal in mind. As you pants your novel, keep in mind your end goal. What transformation do you want your hero to make by the end of the story? How do you want the reader to feel when they turn the last page? What is the purpose of your story? Keep your end goal in mind as you pants your story. Keeping your end goal in mind as you pants your story will help you stay on track even as you are figuring it all out as you go. Yeah, so they just talked about just what I just talked about the ending, about having an ending in mind. I don't really think about how do you want the reader to feel when they turn to the last page. That is something I think about during editing. And what is the purpose of your story? That is also something I think about during editing, maybe like the third or fourth or fifth editing. But what transformation do you want your hero to make by the end? That is something that I do keep in mind somewhat, very loosely, somewhat, throughout writing the story. Are you ready to try writing as a pantser? Now you know what it means to pants a novel, and you have a better idea of how the pantsing method can benefit your novel. I don't know if there's actually a method. Start with an idea or a character. Create a simple organizational system that helps you stay organized as you follow rabbit trails along the writing journey. Remember to always keep your end goal in mind. Using these tips, you'll easily master the art of writing by the seat of your pants. You know, giving advice on how to pants, I think, is really hard because it's like you're just writing. Although there are things that you can do along the way that will help you to keep just writing. As I was saying, with not leaving yourself at a blank page. That method I actually developed during NaNoWriMo, because as a pantser, NaNoWriMo is very difficult to keep up sometimes, and so if I have a blank page, I might not be able to continue writing, because as a pantser, it's like the blank page is like, oh my gosh. And different from plotters who have all this stuff outlined that they have come upon a blank page and all they need to do is check their notes. But for pantsers, you still do need something. You can overwrite it as much as you want, but you still do need a little something. And I found out that if I do that method, it really helps me to continue writing the next day, if I am writing every day like I do for NaNoWriMo. So, and that helps the flow and everything. That helps the writing flow, to keep the momentum of the writing flow. So this article, no idea who wrote it. Absolutely no idea. No idea when either. Sometimes it says in this, in the URL of the article, sometimes it says it there, but no idea. I'm going to have to put in not applicable thing for the date for this one. No author name. So is this new stuff? Is this old stuff? We don't really know. Overall, there's some things I agree with, and there's some things I don't agree with. Is that because this is a bad article, or is that because I'm not this person, whoever wrote this? I'm not this type of pantser. Maybe there are other people who are this type of pantser, but I'm not this type of pantser. Is that it? Or is this somehow confused about being a pantser and being a plotter, despite having defined it earlier? I'm not entirely sure. So anyway, that's it for this article. It's probably quite a long video because I did go into tangents of my own experiences and stuff like that. As for what I said about what works for me, I don't know if it worked for you, I mean, you really just need to try out things and see if it will work. Basically, as a pantser, you're trying to keep momentum, right? So you're trying to keep momentum. So if you come upon something that is like, oh my gosh, I can't remember the character's name, I can't remember the name of the road, and if you have a few notes on that on the side that you can refer to, oh yes, the town in the north is called Northern Town or whatever, and the characters have just gone there, so that's the name I need to use. If you can have some little notes like that, that would be great. Just keeping track of just things. Oh, that was a yawn. Anyway, this article was interesting. It's very interesting indeed. I didn't feel like they misrepresented pantsing. They did have the sort of similar type of confusions that I've seen other articles on pantsing do. Like they're saying pantsers don't have an outline, and yet you need some kind of an outline while you're writing. And I'm like, I don't do that. Anyway, that's that. Let me know what you think about this article. Let me know in the comments down below, as always. And let me know if you have an article that you want me to look at on writing, on pantsing, on fantasy tropes and cliches, on world building. What else am I good at? Or any general writing advice article, anything. I now have a form which you can go to. You can send a link to the form, and I can react to it. So that is something that could happen if you go to that form. I'm going to link the form in the description so that you can get to it easily. And hope to see some interesting articles from you. And that's it. Hope you have a lovely day. And if you were considering being a pantser, maybe you've been inspired or not, I don't know. I have been quite critical of this website called Living Writer. Now, the reason I've been critical of them is because the 2 articles I covered on their fantasy tropes and cliches were both just completely ridiculous. But I had the thought that what if they just don't really like fantasy tropes? But their other articles could be good. Maybe just those 2 people who wrote those 2 articles just don't like fantasy tropes. What about like their other articles? I'm kind of repeating myself. So I found this article. Now, I decided to try a topic of something that I'm curious about what other people are saying. So I'm a pantser, meaning that I write by the seat of my pants. Meaning I don't outline a story beforehand. Meaning if I have an idea, maybe I think about it for a while, get some inspiration from Pinterest or something, and then I just start writing. I just get right into it and just see what happens. And I thought, what are other people saying about pantsers? So I think I looked at another website, I can't remember what it was, on pantsers. And I thought, I'll try Living Writer. What do they say about pantsers? Maybe they actually have a good article. So I looked up pantser. I searched for the word pantser, and I came up on about, I might sneeze, 5 articles. I think it was 5 articles. And I found this one called Gardner. Let's see if I can select this so you can see. Gardner versus Architect. Which type suits you best? And I thought, that's interesting. Gardner is the pantser, I think. And Architect is the one that does the outlining, I think. Yeah, I think I've heard them used that way. Like pantser is also sometimes called a discovery writer. So I've known there to be 3 types of writers. The pantser writes by the seat of their pants, the planner who does all the outlining, and the planter who's someone somewhere in the middle. They might do a little bit of outlining, and they might also write by the seat of their pants. And they're using the terms Gardner and Architect. I don't know what the middle would be called if it's just Gardner and Architect. What would it be? The Gardner versus the Architect. What would the middle be? Like the middle for pantser and planner is planter. So this will be the Garditect or the Archiner. maybe. Anyway, this is by Roberto. It's probably like Roberto Suano. I don't know how to say it. Anyway, written on June 24, 2021. So we're going to take a look at this. There's a picture of a garden. You will start here. Let's read. Some writers excel at spontaneously writing any ideas that pop into their minds. On the other hand, some approach writing in a more methodical way, planning every step of the process. The first type of writer mentioned is the gardener. Okay, I was right. While the second one is the architect. Which is better, the gardener versus architect, and which suits you better? Okay, so they're not just going to talk about which suits you better, they're also going to talk about which is better. So we're going to compare gardener and architect, like which is the better type of writer, which I think is kind of silly to say, because did you know Stephen King is a pantser? And look what he's creating. Pantser meaning gardener. They're saying gardener. Anyway, let's see what they say about Gardner. Beginning here. The gardener is aptly called so because of the way they allow their stories to progress. After having a seedling of an idea, they water and tend to this idea, letting it grow on its own. This type of writer relies a lot on their emotions to write, allowing them to do the work. As a result, they generally end up with pretty exciting and fresh content. Okay. This is interesting that they say this type of writer relies a lot on their emotions to write. What do they exactly mean by that? I mean, when I feel sad, I'm not writing a sad scene. What? I mean, like, if I feel sad, I don't think to myself, okay, let me write a happy scene, or let me write a sad scene. I might not even write. What do they mean by on their emotions? Do you think they explain this? Let's see if they will. A popular gardener, and the one who introduced the concept of gardeners and architects, is George R.R. Martin, the author of the A Song of Fire and Ice series. I didn't know George R.R. Martin was a gardener/pantser. I thought they were going to talk about Stephen King here because he's like one of the well-known pantsers. Anyway, I thought he was. As a gardener, George knows the highlights of his series beforehand, and he can easily have a cool idea pop after another. Don't they mean easily have a cool idea pop one after? It should probably be one after another. Outlining can even prove to be detrimental to gardeners, much like George, who gets disheartened when working on an outline. He says that he has effectively written the story when outlining, and it makes him lose interest on the book. He says that he has effectively written the story when outlining. What is it makes him lose interest? Don't you mean to say ineffectively written the story when outlining? Or do you mean to say that he has, because he wrote the entire story already while outlining, because you do go from the beginning, middle to end when outlining, he loses interest in the story. Interesting. That's not why I stopped outlining. I not stopped outlining, but I tried outlining. And I do agree to the part that says outlining can prove to be detrimental to gardeners. Because I thought, okay, I usually pants, and I'm going to try to outline a series. And I did outline a series, but then I don't know why, but I couldn't write the entire series, the series of 4 books that I had outlined. I thought this is going to be great, this is going to be fun, exciting. I just couldn't write it. I could write it for like 2 whole years. And then one day I thought, you know what, I like this idea of this story, and I like the characters, and I like the magic system and everything, but It's just not working for me. So I'm just going to just not even think about the outline. I'm not even going to even think about all the stuff that I have planned. I'm just going to think about the important parts that I do want to introduce in the series. And then just write it. Just write. Just forget about everything else and just write. And I did use a nano challenge, a self nano challenge, setting up, planning out a month, like giving myself a month from whatever day that I started to write 50K. And I was able to write 4 books in like 2.5 months. So yeah, I'm a pantser through and through. I cannot write with an outline. But I didn't like, the reason that I couldn't write wasn't because I got disinterested when working on the outline. So I'm different from George R.R. Martin in that way. I just felt limited, like I was stuck in a cage or a box or something, and I couldn't escape from my outline, and I didn't feel free writing it. So that's what the outline felt like to me. Okay, so now they're talking about the downsides. Gardeners also have downsides. As they let new ideas come in fresh from their imagination, it's also easy to go off tangent from the original concept, where they can throw away a lot of work done. The nature of a gardener's writing also calls for a lot of editing and reviewing after the first draft to polish out the ideas. These downsides are easily offset by the free approach, which allows gardeners to discover the story, parentheses, discoverers in quotes, then write it by the seat of their pants, parentheses, pantsers in quotes. The gardener also has a more flexible time in writing, which can allow more organic ideas to pop out as long as they stay relevant to the original concept. Okay, this is kind of interesting. Okay. So are they saying that gardeners, discoverers, and pantsers are like 3 different people? I don't get it. Hold on. It's true that you can go off tangent, but if you do pantsing or gardening or discovering for a long time, you begin to catch the moments when you yourself notice that you're going off on a tangent. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's good to just let the characters do what they want to do and see what happens. And sometimes you stop and you say, okay, where is this going? What are we doing? And you just delete what you just wrote and just say, okay, back on track. Okay, guys. Okay, hear me out, characters. Hear me out. Okay, we're not going to go that direction. We're going to go in this direction because I need you two guys to get into a fight, not getting along. I don't like this getting along that's going on. So, or whatever is going on. So, yeah. So, at least that's what I found. In my sort of pantsing journey, I found moments where I can grasp, like, the moment where I'm going off on a tangent. Like, hold on. Wait, stop. What am I writing? You know? It's kind of like if you're just talking and you're just talking like a stream of consciousness type of talking, and you recognize where you yourself has gotten off topic. It's kind of like that. For me, anyway. The nature of a gardener's writing also calls for a lot of editing and reviewing. I mean, I think it doesn't matter whether you're a gardener or an architect, that you do a lot of editing and reviewing after the first draft to polish out the ideas anyway, I think. I mean, just because you have something all planned and everything doesn't mean there is zero editing and zero reviewing. I think it's not, what do you say? How do you say it? It's not fair to say that a gardener has to do a lot of editing because they're a gardener. Writers just do a lot of editing and reviewing after they write the first draft anyway. So that's a strange thing to say. Living writer. Of course you're going to say a few strange things, aren't you? I mean, I expected that. These downsides are easily offset by the free approach, which allows gardeners to discover the story and then write it by the seat of their pants. So are you saying that they have downsides, but they don't have downsides? What are you saying? I don't get it. The downsides are offset by the free approach. So it's sort of like they're saying, are they saying that, oh, all these off-tangent things are bad because they're a downside, but they're also good because it's free approach and discovering and writing by the seat of your pants, which is a great thing and a fun thing, and allows more organic ideas to pop out, as long as they stay relevant to the original concept. So you're saying there are downsides, but these downsides are not downsides. Am I understanding this correctly? Because it sounds like it's like you're saying it's bad, but the bad things are good, so it's not bad. Moving on, the architect. The architect is the opposite of a gardener. This type of writer has a much more planned approach for writing. I said writing. Planned approach for writing. Rather than writing as words come to you, an architect plans ahead and thinks what and how he is going to write something. J.K. Rowling, problematic J.K. Rowling, am I right? The author of the world-renowned Harry Potter book series is a great example of an architect. Okay, she's an architect. Architects tend to explore aspects of their story before writing anything down. They develop the concept of a character first, usually in character sheets that may detail their likes, dislikes, and sometimes even their entire backstory. They often establish the settings and the plot in an outline, taking their sweet time and going through how they want it to go. Okay. Since architects spend a lot of time in this phase of the writing process, they can greatly benefit from using writing tools such as Living Writer. Okay, they're promoting their app. Living Writer is also an app for writing stories, apparently. It's for planners or stuff, apparently. I don't know. Now they're just promoting their site. Story Elements allows them their marketing. Living Writer is using J.K. Rowling's architect style to market their app. Okay. Story Elements allows them to go into the nitty-gritty details of a character, setting, or phenomenon, even see, they slip into saying, they're talking about architects, right? And it says Story Elements allows them to go into the nitty-gritty details of a character, setting, or phenomenon, and even allow you to store images as a visual stimulus while writing. See, they're saying the you now, and this is a marketing thing when you're talking to you and not just talking about them, the architects over there. We are talking about you, the architect. See, they're slipping their marketing stuff in here. Architects, now they're back to this plural architects, okay. Architects can spend hours on the outlines and chapters, where they can plan plot points and other important details, and they can go as intricate as plan each scene in a chapter. So we're not talking about what architects just typically do. We're talking about Living Writer's app here. It's okay to promote your app, but this article is not the place to do it. Please just talk about architects and what they do outside of your app, and then you can mention it at the end. That might have been nicer. Anyway, the predefined structure of the story allows for less chances of getting a writer's block, but that structure can also be its own downfall. Interesting. Okay, let's see what they say. A story known before it's written could feel very rigid. This is what I felt after I made an outline. Especially if the architects spend more time thinking about what to write instead of actually writing. The emotional impact of certain scenes and plot lines Plot lines might also fall short because the reactions are already known beforehand. Architects, however, can boast a higher productivity rate than gardeners. I have things to say about that. With an outline and a myriad of notes to refer to, architects don't have to rely on a light bulb moment and just follow what they planned beforehand. Architects also don't have to extensively edit their drafts outside of technicalities because the plot is already well defined even before the first word is written. Well, but I have heard of architects or outliners or planners who have to reorder their outline many times before they're even ready to write a single word. So just because they might not be editing the manuscript itself over and over, I have heard some of my planner friends who have to edit the outline itself, restructure it over and over. So it's like they're doing a lot of editing beforehand, while over here you have the pantser. It's already started writing. So architects can boast a higher productivity rate than gardeners. I don't think so. I think it's about the same. I mean, Stephen King is a pantser. He's written a heck of a lot of books. I mean, when I go to I don't know if you knew this, but I live in Japan. When I go to the English bookstores in Japan, there is an entire section dedicated to Stephen King. Wow, all those books. Some of them are really thick too. They're chunky books. All that pantsing. Oh. And then you have other people like J.K. Rowling. I don't know who else is a planner because I'm a pantser, so I don't know who else is who's a planner. But wrote an entire 7-book series, right? Harry Potter 7-book series. I mean, I haven't heard of her writing anything else. I mean, well, yeah, she has written some other stuff, but not as much as Stephen King. But not to compare the two because they still are different writers. You can be prolific planner. You can be a prolific pantser. I mean, I don't think Gardner versus architect that you can say that one is more productive than the other. That is weird to say that. I think the only reason they're saying that is because they want you to use their app. I just noticed something. I don't know if this is somebody's actual story, okay? And this picture that they have up of their app, I guess, it says they have these like character names written down here on these like cards, and one of the characters' names is Calendar. It's Calendar. I don't know if that's somebody's actual name and somebody's actual character name. If it is, well, you do you stuff. I don't really care what your character names are, as long as the story is good. But Calendar. I don't know. That's kind of a strange name to me. Sounds like calendar. I mean, calendar. So they are saying, where are we? Architects don't have to rely on a light bulb moment. I think when they outline, they have to rely on a light bulb moment, don't you? I mean, just because you're an architect doesn't mean when you're outlining a story, you don't have a light bulb moment. I mean, that is weird to say. It's like saying architects don't have ideas. They do have ideas. Living writer, you're being kind of ridiculous again. Once again, you're just using this article to promote your app. Don't do that. Make a separate article for this, or just talk about it at the end, and just not try to say that being an architect is better than being a gardener because it's more productive. That is incredibly wrong. I can say that Living writer is again saying some strange, ridiculous things. Please don't do this. Please don't try to say being a gardener is like bad. But also say that being a gardener is bad, but the bad things can be good things, so it's actually good. So I don't even know what you're saying. If you're going to talk about the pros and cons, actually talk about the pros and cons. Don't say architects, however, can boast a higher productivity rate than gardeners. Please. Please. Okay, here we go. Here we go, guys. It's the drama. All right. Are you with me? Are you with me? Okay. What's the best type? Both styles. I don't know why I keep kind of lisping today. That's weird. Both styles have their own pros and cons. The gardener can produce exciting and emotionally charged stories. However, they might also leave out plenty of important bits and focus too much attention on a single part of their story. Really? Did we even talk about this in the part above? I don't think so. What? I don't know. On the other hand, the architect makes excellently structured stories with very solid delivery. Even so, the story may not resonate much with the readers in terms of excitement or emotions. We did not talk about this. We did not talk about this part, this excitement or emotions part with the readers, like a planner's story isn't exciting or something. We didn't talk about this above, so I don't know where this is coming from. Anyway. At this point, you might have realized that you exhibit characteristics of both types. The truth is, architects and gardeners are the two extremes of a spectrum, and it's perfectly fine, if not the norm, to sit in the middle. You can plan the basic plot and specific events that you want to happen, yet spontaneously ignore certain parts of it once you've decided that a newer idea is the better approach. Okay. All right. So we're talking about pros and cons, but now we're saying you can be either one, which is true. There is a middle ground. Brandon Sanderson is one notable author who personally claims that he is a mix of a gardener and an architect. Like Sanderson, you might, and interesting, above, this is interesting, I want to say. Above, they mention George R.R. Martin, and they call him George. And then they mention J.K. Rowling, and they don't call her anything. And then they mention Brandon Sanderson, and they call him Sanderson. You're not on a first-name basis with Brandon Sanderson? I don't know. Be consistent. Come on. It's not hard. Like Sanderson, you might want to know where you want to start and end, but you should also allow some flexibility when you are already working on the draft. As new ideas flow in the midst of your writing process, allow your original ideas to be rebuilt. By considering your outline to be a living entity that evolves as time goes by, you can integrate the best bits of a gardener and an architect. Okay. Certainly, the best type is the type where you feel the most productive with. If you feel anxious not knowing where the story would go, then it might be good to try making an outline before jumping right into the action. If you feel restricted by the confines of an outline, then you can just take a go at it and write right away. The important thing is that you feel comfortable with your way of writing. Experiment working with outlines and letting your ideas run wild during the writing phase. Over time, you'll get a feel of what approach allows you to write the stories that you want to be told. You don't have to pit the gardener versus architect, but pick out traits that you believe is beneficial for your writing process. At the end, Living Writer comes through and says a good thing. Okay, so, and if you're going to say this good thing, I beg you, take this part out. Please. Can boast higher productivity rate than gardeners is contradicting to what you were saying down here. You don't have to pit them together. Pick out the traits that you feel will work for you. Oh, you should experiment. Oh, choose what way is more comfortable. That's exactly it. But you are contradicting with yourself, Living Writer. I think Living Writer articles did this before too. It contradicts with itself. Do people actually, when people write these articles for like these writing advice websites, are they read by another person before they're posted? It does seem like they go through a spell check at least, because haven't seen any like spelling issues or like rarely like grammar issues. I mean, some parts are kind of weird sometimes, but nothing that particularly stands out as being bad writing. But in terms of like contradictions and making sense, sometimes they say weird things. So do they get another pair of eyes on this, or are they just letting AI do the stuff? Like, I don't know. I don't mean AI meaning like AI that we know about it today, but like, Grammarly or something like that. Do they get a second pair of human eyes looking at this at all? I don't know. I kind of wondered about that. Because they're saying the best type is the type where you feel the most productive with. And then up here, they're saying architects can boast a higher productivity rate than gardeners, which is stupid. So they're saying here is the best type, but no, here is not the best type. Both are good. Both are great. Choose what is comfortable for you. Yay. Okay. Last but not least, be yourself. At the end of the day, what matters most is that you write whatever you feel most comfortable. Outside of situations in which you have no other choice, it's definitely wise to stick to a style that lets you feel more freedom when writing. On this note, take some time to reflect on what style suits you the best, and when you find the answer, polish your technique and let it shine. Whether you find yourself to be more of a gardener or an architect, be sure that Living Writer can definitely help you in many ways than one. Okay, then tell me exactly, Living Writer, how you are going to be helpful to a pantser. Maybe you should talk about that too. If you're going to do it for the architect, you should do it for the pantser too. Okay, be consistent. Also be consistent if you're going to say Sanderson. Maybe say Rowling, and also maybe say Martin instead of George. But I guess you're on a first name basis with George. Hey, George. I'm not on a first name basis. I always say just George R.R. Martin. I mean, what part of his name do you break up to say, is it Mr. Martin if you had met him formally? Or do you just say George? Or do you say George R.R.? Or do you say R.R. Martin? Like, what is the R.R.? I'm confused. What part of the R.R. is his middle name? Or is it even his middle name? Is it even a real middle name? I don't know anything about him. I just know the books that he's written. And I only read the first one. And I watched them. Did I watch? I didn't watch anything. Actually, I only read the first book. But I did read the first book. That was a wild ride. Anyway, this article is... You know what? The best way I can describe a Living Writer article, this Living Writer article, is that it was going along relatively okay. And then they say something stupid, and then it's like, okay, it's like, oh my gosh, it makes me rub my forehead and shake my head, smack my lips, and just be like, I don't know. It gives me a kind of, not disgusting feeling, but kind of like, they almost had it. They almost had something good here, but no, they don't. In the end, it was disappointment. Roberto Suano. I don't know how to say his name. Almost did a good job. Almost. Okay, so what I think is that pitting one against the other, which type suits you the best, is a clickbait article title. Because in the beginning they're pitting them against each other, Gardner versus Architect. Ooh, Architect is more productive, and look, you can be even more productive as an architect if you use our app. Oh, living writer, you're not gonna stop promoting your app, are you? I mean, okay, maybe your app is really helpful to some people, but you don't have to keep promoting it in every single article you have. Although I will say that I don't know if they promote it in every single article they have. I don't know that. But I didn't want to see it here. As if to say that, hey, if you're an architect, you can use our app. But if you're a gardener, it will not help you. So, like, we don't like you. We don't care. We don't know how you want to use it, Gardner, because we don't know you. We are architects over here. Architects who build an app for architects. I don't know if they say that. I don't know if they're implying that. But if they don't talk about their app when they're talking about the Gardner, like if they do want to promote their app, they need to promote it to everybody, right? And not everybody is going to be an architect. I'm a pantser. And saying that a pantser story is more emotionally charged than an architect story is weird to say. Because then that says a Song of Ice and Fire series is more emotionally charged than the Harry Potter series. That's like saying that. I mean, I think a lot of fans will disagree. Don't you think? I mean, it's not one or the other, it's this way or that way. I mean, I don't think it matters how you write. In the end, there are just good writers and bad writers. Well, no, they're not bad writers. There are experienced writers, and there are amateur writers. There is good writing, and there is mediocre writing. There is writing that needs work, and the author does nothing about it. There is writing that is spectacular writing. A spectacular book can exist out there. And is that person a gardener, an architect? Does it matter as long as in the end the story is great? It doesn't matter what you are, okay? All right. Because I have friends who are planners and they write great stuff. And I have friends who are pantsers and they also write great stuff. So the point is the outcome and not the getting there. But if you are trying to figure out if you are a gardener or architect, then I would say the only good thing that Living Writer has said here is that experiment working with outlines and letting your ideas run wild. I would say is good to experiment. And that is what I did. Like I said, I talked about how I tried outlining because I thought, well, maybe I would get more done if I outlined, because I felt like I was writing very slowly or not fast enough and not producing enough or something like that. And I thought, I need to, if I want to write a 4-book series, I need to plan this thing out. But it didn't work for me, and I couldn't figure out what to do to make it work for me, but it just wasn't working. So I decided to just pants them all. And it worked for me to pants. So I figured out through my experiment, that I am a pantser to the core. So I can't plan any of my stories beforehand. That isn't to say that I don't do any thinking. And that isn't to say that my stories are like there's something wrong with them because I'm a gardener. I don't like the gardener term. I like saying pantser. It just sounds more fun to say I'm a pantser and I write by the seat of my pants, because I mean, it's not pants. Like in the summer I might write by the seat of my skirt, but you don't say I'm a skirter, because that's another word that's a weird word. Not skirting on the edge of a story here. I'm in the thick of it. Maybe I'm the jungle explorer, something like that. Actually, explorer versus I don't know. Like, if the gardener is an explorer, then what is the architect is... I'm not sure. There's a little bit of an earthquake right now. Actually, I had a side tangent at the end of this video here. I had a dream about an earthquake last night. I don't know what that means. You know, I looked it up, and apparently it means that I'm stressed out about life. But that's normal. So, and you know what? In my dream, the earthquake in my dream, I wasn't scared of it at all in my dream. It's like, oh, this is a massive earthquake. It's the biggest earthquake I've ever experienced. Huh, how interesting was kind of my reaction in my dream. That was such a weird dream. Do you guys have weird dreams sometimes? What is a weird dream that you've had recently? Have you had any weird dreams recently? Sometimes I hear like rumors and stuff about like if you eat a certain cheese before bed, you have weird dreams, or if you eat chocolate or banana before bed, you have weird dreams, or like berries and stuff. I've heard rumors like that. I don't know if it's true. I've seen YouTube videos about people trying it, but I don't know if it's true. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Gardener versus architect, which type suits you best? No. Living writer, no. Nope. Overall verdict, well, 2.5 or 3 out of 5. I don't know. It's kind of mediocre. Mediocre in not a good sense, not a good type of mediocre. Yeah. Contradiction central in here. That's the end of this story? No. That's the end of this video. You will hear me in the next video. I realize that sometimes I give you secret words at the end and sometimes I don't. Today I am. Your secret word is Gardetect. See? Gardetect or Arcaner. Gardetect or Arcaner. A made-up word. Made up by me. So if you don't watch the end of this video, you wouldn't have known what the heck other people are commenting. How are you doing? How is everything? So I decided to look up some articles on pantsing because I found out that there are still writers who don't know what a pantser is, because there was somebody on Instagram, can't remember their name, anyway, that she was talking about her writing methods and styles, and I thought, hey, fellow pantser. And then she said, that sounds cool, what's a pantser? And I thought, oh, she doesn't know what a pantser is. And I remembered another writer asking, what is a pantser, can you explain? I'm like, it's interesting how so many people don't know. So I thought, okay, let's look up what are writing advice articles saying about pantsering. So I found this website called selfpublishing.com. Now, not to confuse this with Self-Publishing School. That's a completely different website. I quite like Self-Publishing School, actually. The writing advice articles are probably the best ones, but they're still missing something. Some things need to be improved. Anyway, that's Self-Publishing School. This is just selfpublishing.com. And I thought, okay, well, I'm self-publishing and I'm a pantser. I thought, that's a pretty good match of me to react to this. So we're going to go through this. It's titled, Should You Write as a Pantser? I feel like this is an attack on me, so let's see what they're saying and see if I agree or disagree, because not to say that pantsing is like the golden best thing there ever was. I mean, of course, there's some downfalls about being a pantser. There's also some downfalls about being a plotter, too. I know that because I've read about it, and I've also heard plotters talk about it. Like, you can start plotting, and then you've been plotting for, 10 years or something. Anyway, not to get ahead of ourselves here, plotter versus pantser, posted by PJ McNulty. I feel like I've heard this name before, PJ McNulty. I'm not sure where. Are they an author or something? I don't know. Anyway, so immediately they want you to sign up for some kind of thing. Let's begin here. If you've started the process of researching how to write a novel, you may well have encountered the term pantser, but what exactly is a pantser? If you were too shy to ask, this article has got you covered. We'll explain exactly what writing as a pantser entails, explore if it's the right option for you, and provide some other ways of writing you may wish to consider. Unlike other terms related to book writing, pantser is less than obvious. If you hear the term plotter, you immediately understand it has something to do with plotting, but what about pantser? No need to get your pants in a twist. Let's delve straight into it. No need to get your pants in a twist. Is that a phrase? I feel like that should be a different word anyway. Anyway, what they are saying here is in this article. See, the thing about writing of various articles, this thing about the introductions of articles is that I don't know when they are written. At least they don't seem to be revising the introductions to articles after they finish writing the article to match with the rest of the article, because they promise that, oh, we're going to do this, and then they don't do it. So a lot of time, anyway. I'm not saying every time, but a lot of the time. They're going to explain what writing as a pantser entails. They're going to explore if it's the right option for you, and they're going to provide some other ways of writing you may wish to consider. So just saying, oh, pantsing isn't like the only way to do things. Of course, they're saying pantser versus plotter, so I'm guessing that they're only going to be talking about pantser and plotter and not the in-betweeny, which is pantser. We'll see. We'll see what they do. We'll see what they actually do. First, get up here, nice and cozy. What is a pantser? So what is a pantser? A pantser is a writer who works without an outline, a term derived from the concept of writing by the seat of your pants. It stands in contrast to a plotter, who is someone who outlines their work to a greater or lesser extent. That's not to say that pantsers go into the book writing process totally blind. They may have the start of their story in mind or overall theme or concept. However, they let the direction of their work However, they let the direction their work takes develop during the writing process itself. This approach has both advantages as drawbacks don't they mean this approach has both advantages and drawbacks? That's a mistake there. As we will explore later in the article. But before we get into the pros and cons of being a pantser and determine whether it's the right approach for you and your book, let's contrast it in more depth with the other approach to writing, plotting. That is not the other approach. There is another one. But anyway, yeah, so this is the exact meaning of what pantser is. And when I first found out, I can't remember how I found out. I found this out through Instagram. I think it was Instagram, actually. Because I don't think I was talking about pantsing or knew about it before then, but I remember the moment I heard it, I thought, well, that's exactly me. And I like that term. It's fun. Saying pantser is fun. It's every time I try to write pantser, spell check changes it to panther, so I guess I'm a panther. Anyway, tangent. So it's the concept of writing by the seat of your pants. You just sit down and you start writing. That's exactly what I do. It is often contrasted to a plotter, someone who outlines their work. Like I've seen plotters on Instagram showing their wall of sticky notes, and I'm like, how are you so organized? How are you so organized? And then like some people have like entire diagrams and like Excel notes and all that stuff, and I'm like, how do you even manage to do that? It's almost ridiculous. Anyway, that's what I feel. I thought, oh my gosh, the lengths in which these people go to do that. It's nice to look at, like aesthetically pleasing to look at all those different colors, and some people have like character plot lines and like subplot lines and then overarching plot lines and all different colors of sticky notes and everything, and they build the map and everything is all set up and ready to go when they are ready, which I don't know when they are ready, but they will be ready. And when they are, they're gonna really plow through that story, I think. I once knew somebody who was plotting for 10 years, and then they wrote like a 100K word novel in a month. That was surprising because I thought that if you have been plotting for that long, it would be hard to get into the writing part, but I guess not for them. So anyway, pantser versus plotter. We're going to pin them against each other, aren't we? A plotter is someone who takes the time is missing. A plotter is someone who takes the time outlining the events of their story in advance of writing it. Rather than letting the story evolve organically as they write, plotters start the process with a detailed breakdown of the events that will occur. Plotters can prepare to various extents. Some may have a vague outline, such as writing down the major scenes that will occur, while still giving themselves some flexibility as far as exactly what happens and how they get to their major story milestones. Others choose to write not only every chapter, but a detailed structure of exactly what will occur in that chapter and in which order. Oh, I've seen that. I've seen plotters go way into the details of their chapters, and all down to all the nitty-gritties of the conflicts and what the characters are going to talk about, at which and what point everything is going to be brought up. And I guess that is a good way to do some things, but I can't work like that. I've tried, but I just can't. Pantsers, on the other hand, allow themselves total freedom to go with the flow and let their story develop freely. Put simply, there's an issue. All right. Put simply, the issue of pantser versus plotter comes down to the level of detail in place regarding a story's events before the writing process begins. Plotters prefer to work with a greater... I think they meant to say pantsers here, because it says plotters prefer to work with a greater level of freedom while plotters prefer to write to a plan. They meant to say pantsers, look, hey, publishing, what was it, self-publishing.com, author PJ McNulty, this is a big mistake here, but if I can understand that this is supposed to be pantsers and not plotters, then probably other people can too, but I think you need to edit, and meanwhile, while you're at it, you should edit the other things that you missed before. Anyway, pantsers, not plotters, prefer to work with a greater level of freedom, while plotters prefer to write to a plan. Now that you know the difference between the two major schools of though, did anybody read through this article after it was written? Come on, you can spot these things if you read it through it, because I'm spotting them as I'm reading through it. Now that you know the difference between the two major schools of thought, it should be thought, regarding writing planning. What? Wait, hold on. There's 3 INGs at the end there. Wait, hold on. Let me just... Now that you know the difference between the two major schools of thought regarding writing planning, I have no idea what they're trying to say there. Do you have any idea? Schools of thought regarding writing planning. Like, what do you think they were trying to say? Regarding writer's planning? Regarding pantsing and plotting? I have no idea. Maybe they didn't even mean to put planning here. Maybe they want to say schools of thought regarding writing. Or regarding planning writing. I don't know. What do you think they were trying to say here? I have no idea. Let's take a closer look. Okay, this article was a mess. A mess of typos. PJ McNulty must have been extremely excited. Let's take a look, because when I'm excited writing something, I make lots of typos. That's why I say he was probably very excited. Actually, I don't know if it's a male, female writer. I don't know. I'm just PJ McNulty. I just know an author named McNulty, and it being a male author. I don't know. Anyway, they should fix this. Take a closer look at the plus sides. We should start saying, take a closer look at the plus sides and drawbacks of taking a pantser approach to writing fiction. Okay, plus sides and drawbacks. Okay, so now after we have pinned pantser and plotter against each other, we are going to talk about the plus sides and drawbacks of pantsing. Okay, so plotters, yeah, so anyway, pantsers allow themselves total freedom to go with the flow and let the story develop freely. Yes, exactly what I do is I just let it go, can't hold it back anymore. The issue comes down to the level of detail in place regarding a story's events before. Okay, so yeah, so they are just kind of repeating themselves. What they are saying here, put simply, I guess they're putting it simply, I guess. So pantsers, greater level of freedom. Plotters, we gotta plan the details. That's basically it. Basically, you got it? Good. Basically, that's what it is. What are the benefits of writing as a pantser? Choosing to write as a pantser has a number of benefits. After all, if it didn't, no writers would take this approach. Did you know Stephen King is a pantser? And look how much stuff he publishes. If that doesn't scream pantser success, I don't know what does. I don't know what does at all. So what are some of the major benefits and plus points to writing without a detailed outline? By the way, when was this article published? We have no idea. Okay, we have no idea. All right. I was just curious because sometimes it matters when the article is published, like if they mention like an author. Usually it's an author that was trending or popular at the time that the article was written. Although Stephen King he's always trending and popular, isn't he? See where your story goes. I don't know why I'm talking like this. Okay. Once you are engaged in the process of writing fiction, your mind will work on it, both consciously and subconsciously. If you write to a strict outline, you lose the chance to form new connections and realizations mentally during the writing process. Choosing the pantser route allows you to follow your instinct and intuition as you go, writing whatever feels natural and proper in the moment. Okay, so there was hold on. Story moment. Okay, so I am in a bunch of writing-based Discord groups that are based out of Wattpad. And in one of the Discord writing groups, I once got to talking with a plotter. And I asked them exactly something related to, if you write a strict outline, you lose the chance to form new connections and realizations mentally during the writing process. I asked them, like, what if while you are writing, you realize that something in your outline just doesn't quite match up and you want to change it? What do you do? And so this is just based on one person. Okay, so that person said that what they do is that they go back to the outline and fix what is in the outline. And they said that for them, their outline is quite sort of not loose, but it's not completely set in stone. So they do allow for like some free flowing ideas and stuff to happen during the writing process, and then they go to the outline and then they sort of fix it, and then they rework things in the outline if other things need to be reworked during the process, and then they continue on writing after that. Am I making sense? I'm just talking from the top of my brain. Okay, so seems like some plotters, or at least that one person, does allow their outline to be a little bit more, how do you say it? Like, it's not really fluid, but flowy, but flexible. That's what I wanted to say. Flexible. Yes, more flexible. So I don't know if all plotters do this, but some plotters, at least that one person, allows their outline to be more flexible. So while they are writing, they allow the outline to change. So anyway, side note thing, but I thought I remembered that when I read this part. Okay. So choosing the pantser route allows you to follow your instinct and intuition as you go. Yeah, definitely. I'm just writing, and sometimes there comes a point where it just sort of runs on its own. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's like suddenly the story has a mind of its own, and the characters are starting to do things that you didn't expect them to do. It's getting very juicy and interesting. And so you just become like the journalist, running after your characters and writing down the story as they go. I don't know how it happens, but it's very crazy and weird, but it does happen. And when it happens, I say, okay, here we go. This is the momentum I was hoping for. Some stories, that happens very quickly for me, but some stories for me, it doesn't happen as quickly as I hoped that it would happen. And then I'm just like, when is it going to happen? When are the characters going to take over the story for me? I'm struggling here, guys. Where are you? And then they're like, here we are. And I'm like, you're late. So, the freedom to change your mind. If you have a detailed outline before starting your story, you make your mind up about your characters' fates before you really get to know them. Pantsing allows you to adopt as you gain greater familiarity with your characters, allowing them to act in ways that feel right after you've spent some time writing them. If you have a detailed outline before starting your story, you make your mind up. Yeah, pantsing allows you to adopt as you gain familiarity with your characters. I usually have some vague idea about who my guy is. So, like if I know that my character is very full of himself and just very confident and narcissistic, but he has this sort of vulnerability that he's actually hiding, then I would make sure that there are times where that seeps through a little bit, like his vulnerability. But in terms of like why he's vulnerable, like his backstory and that sort of thing, like how this character became this way, that sort of deeper side of the character is sort of like created as I'm writing the story. So like I don't know why he's like this. I just know he is. So that just comes up during the story. Like, usually it's about the middle part, because the middle part is where, like, the characters decide to, I don't know, air out their laundry, I guess you could say. Talk about their past and, like, become sentimental or sad or whatever, and they start talking about themselves a little bit more. And then that's when I realized that, oh, that is why he is so trying to be so full of himself, because this actually happened in the past, so he feels like he needs to be guarded or whatever. That's how he's guarding himself or whatever, like something like that. So I do have an idea of what he is, just not how he is, and the how he is part comes up in the middle part of the story, usually for me, or a little bit before that, because I'm always thinking ahead of what I want to have happen by what point. So in the middle part, I know that the character is going to, like, talk about their feelings. So, and that is where I think, okay, so what kind of feelings are he going to talk about? And it's going to somehow relate to why he is the way he is. So someone who is confident in everything, what are they actually doing? And so I might even look up like psychology of narcissists or something like that, and figure out exactly why people are the way they are, and that comes into play in the story. Am I just rambling? Am I making sense at all? So what I'm saying is that I agree with them. I agree with this article. Pantsing allows you to adopt as you gain familiarity with your characters. So I'm like learning about them, figuring them out, okay, and then they might do something, and then, okay, like, this is how they act, okay, I get it. Excitement of discovering your plot. Okay, here he is, Stephen King is one of the most famous pantser writers. He describes the process of writing a story as like excavating a dinosaur bone. You might have a rough idea in mind of its shape, but discovering what it really looks like gradually is part of the pleasure. Pantsing allows you to experience the excavation process. Interesting way of putting it, Stephen King. Interesting way of putting it. I've heard some people saying a pantser is also called a discovery writer. You're definitely discovering your plot as you go along. At least that's what happens with me. And usually, though, I do have a vague idea of the beginning, middle, and end. So for me, I write towards the end. So I am definitely searching how I want this story to end. So now I just have to get everything to the end. Whatever happens just has to magically move to the end. And there's some things, like some twists that happen that I didn't expect would happen. And then they happen, and then I'm like, okay, so how am I going to connect this to the end? Like, what is this plot hole? Like, what am I going to do? And then I get these moments like, aha, I know exactly what to do, exactly how to connect these puzzle pieces. And then it becomes like this whole typity storm to connect them, and then it's just riddled with plot holes still. So I fixed that during the second draft. The first draft is just, I'm just going to forcefully connect these with this great idea I have, which I know is still a skeleton of an idea, but we're gonna get there somehow. Okay. Quicker to get started. Outlining your book can be a time-consuming and sometimes tedious process. This is especially true if you choose to write an in-depth breakdown of each and every chapter. If you opt to write as a pantser, you spend less time preparing, allowing you to get into the thick of writing quicker. These are some of the major reasons why you may wish to adopt the pantser approach for your book. I don't know why I said for your book. What the heck is that? What about the drawbacks? Okay, so quicker to get started. Yeah, that's true. We start writing faster. Like if I say, okay, I'm a pantser, and then another person says, I'm a plotter. Let's race to see who will finish writing a book first. Ready, go. And I already start writing. I'm already writing typey. While the plotter is over there like mapping the structure of the plot, and then several years later, I'm like, I'm done my first draft. And the plotter is like, hey, I'm just getting started. So, I I mean, that's how I imagine it would be if we actually like took two people, a pantser and a plotter, and just actually raced them. That would be wild. That would be wild. But then after that, editing might look a little bit different, because maybe do pantsers actually have more drafts than a plotter? Because of how many plot holes that we have that the plotter wouldn't have because they had planned everything beforehand? I don't know. I think it depends on the person. Anyway. So those are all the good things. The benefits. Oh, you have so much freedom to change your mind. It's all natural, and the characters do all kinds of things, and you can discover it and get excited, and you can start faster. Yay! What about the drawbacks? What are the dangers of writing as dangers of writing as a pantser? Why choose this word? I mean, it's like I'm writing as a pantser, so it's somehow like toxic or like dangerous. I'm going to, I don't know, what dangerous. It's a little dramatic, don't you think? Of course, writing as a pantser has a number of potential disadvantages to be avoided. Skillful writers can mitigate most of them, but to do so, you need to know what they are in advance. I don't know. I didn't know what they were in advance. I've always been a pantser and figured out what works and what doesn't for me, and then figured out what to do when I come upon whatever issues, and I didn't have to read an article to figure that out. But anyway, each to their own. Uneven pacing. One of the major risks you take as a pantser is distorting the pacing of your book. I'm just laughing because distorting, oh my gosh, you're so dramatic. You may get caught up in the flow and make your opening section longer than it should be. You know what? I think plotters would do the same thing. Or if you're like a novice writer, you might have like 10 pages of backstory. Doesn't matter if you're a planner or a plotter. I keep wanting to say planner instead of plotter because, anyway, it doesn't matter if you're a plotter or a pantser. If you're a novice writer, you might do it anyway, but experienced writers have a natural feel for how long fiction should be, including its various sections, but this may prove challenging if you're a new writer. See, if you're a new writer, it would be challenging. It doesn't matter, though, if you're a pantser or a plotter. I think the same thing happens, you know. I mean, I'm just repeating myself, but experienced writers have a natural feel for how long fiction should be. Do they? Because there are so many books out there, like traditionally published books even, you just think about that. There's so many different lengths. I mean, I've read so many different lengths novels, 300 pages to 800 pages to 200 pages to, I don't know, there might be more than that, you know, who knows. So, I don't know. Is there a length of fiction? Like, should fiction be a certain length? I don't know. I mean, books like Perdido Street Station was pretty long. I haven't read it, but Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell that's a really thick book. And that's a debut book, right? I think it was. That is pretty long. Is there a limit? Is there, you know, I don't know. Anyway. Lack of structure. Most stories follow a tried and tested structure, whether that's the hero's journey, the 3-act structure, or something more complex. If you take the pantser approach, you may end up missing out on the tried and tested story structures that readers expect and have been proven to love. Yeah, okay, so I've seen some criticism on the 3-act structure by someone who was a plotter. It was a YouTube video, so I don't remember exactly who the name of the person or anything, because it was just a video that popped up on my recommend, and they were like, you don't have to follow this 3-act structure. Yes, it's something that readers would expect, but then all the stories sound the same. So if you want to be unique, this is what they were saying. So if you want to be unique, don't follow it. It's fine. There are books out there that don't follow it. At least that's what they were saying. So, yeah, so then everything sounds samey, the hero's journey and all that stuff. Or you don't follow it and you be unique. So I do agree, yes, that when you're a pantser, it does lack some structure. But if you understand like a beginning, like a story has a beginning, there's the middle, and there's the end. And it does help to read a lot of books, because you do realize that at the beginning, this kind of stuff happens. And in the middle, this kind of stuff happens. And then leading up to the climax, this kind of stuff happens. And then at the end, this kind of stuff happens. So if you have a basic idea of like, you read a book and then you realize that, oh, there's some kind of structure here. And then you get a feel for it. And then you pants it with the feel. I've been fine. Not to say that I'm like some spectacular writer or anything, or that I don't need to know a structure, but I've been fine I didn't even know about the 3x structure when I started writing. I didn't know about any of the story writing stuff when I started writing. I just started writing. After I'd been reading a lot of books, I just started writing, and here I am, about to self-publish a book, coming out in October, by the way. So, just because you don't know, you may end up missing out. Yeah, I might end up missing out. So what? That's what I feel anyway. Proven to love? Yes, of course, because readers will read what is published out in the published world. That doesn't mean that this 3-act story structure is something that's been proven to love. I'm pretty sure even if it doesn't really follow like a structure, readers will still read it if it's interesting and unique and interesting and exciting and fun and published out there. Because I would, and I read a lot of books, so. Getting stuck midway through. A huge advantage to writing to an outline is you always know what's going to come next. As a pantser, you run the risk of running out of ideas midway through, or you might come up with an idea, but it would contradict something you'd written earlier. Outlining in advance allows you to avoid this dilemma. Yes, it does. However, there is a way to do things, okay? So what I do as a pantser is that, I've come to a point where I just don't feel like writing anymore, but I do have ideas for what's going to happen next. So I'm just going to write notes like, main character goes into her room and then she takes a shower and then there is a knock on her door. And then I just type like, someone knocking. And then the next line is, her friend has returned from the trip unannounced. And then the next line is, comes out of shower, they have a conversation, something exciting happens, or whatever. And then the next line is, some big news, something about moving or someone breaking up or something exciting, shocking, exclamation point. And then I just make it like very simple, like almost like text messagey. And then I leave it like that. And so then the next time I open my document, it's not like I don't have anything to work off of. I have yesterday's ideas to work off of. And so if yesterday's ideas aren't like suiting me right now, I just completely ignore them and write something completely different. But at least I'm not working off of a blank page. There's still something, even if I choose to ignore it after spending so much time writing it yesterday. So that's what I do to avoid it getting stuck. I also like to do this thing where I give myself curveballs. So if I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a little midway point. Oh, it's the boring part, blah, 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 blah. And so I do something shocking, like, I don't know, lights go out. There's a storm, it starts raining. Oh my gosh, action, something happens, terrible, bad. Or shocking, someone returns, and now what are you going to do, writer? This person has returned. You weren't expecting them to return from another 2 chapters, and now they are here. What are the characters going to do? Oh my gosh, what are you doing here? We weren't expecting you back yet. So I just give myself these curveballs, and then I have to force myself to figure out how to work it in, and then somehow it's exciting again, so then I keep on writing. Those are some stuff that work for me as a pantser when I get stuck. To avoid getting stuck. This is something I've developed after doing the Nano November challenge. So I guess some good has come out of that. So yes, outlining in advance allows you to avoid these sort of pitfalls of being a pantser. But if you want to continue push being a pantser, there are ways to deal with the boring middle point. Okay. Lack of careful deliberation. When you outline your novel, you give yourself the chance to carefully deliberate and weigh up the pros. Weigh up. Isn't this like weigh, like when you weigh yourself, that way, not this way? Weigh up the pros and cons of different sections. You can also see how all the pieces fit together, ensuring your story's ending makes sense with the way it starts. Pantsers don't have that big picture advantage. Yeah, that's true. But that's what a second draft is for. Look, that's what editing is for. Come on. Are you going to expect us to write a completely polished first draft? Everybody. Not everybody. PJ McNulty. Yeah, so yes, outlining, you can, plan everything that's going to happen and fit everything together into a nice, neat little finished jigsaw puzzle. But if you're a pantser and you are just writing and there is a bunch of plot holes, you just edit them in for the second draft. That's what I do for all my second drafts. The second draft is to figure out the flow and the structure. That's what I do for the second draft. So, just because you're lacking deliberation doesn't mean it's the end of the world here. It's not a danger of writing as a pantser. I mean, what are you talking about? So I think you're weird. Okay, that's my thought. So now you know the potential downsides of choosing to write as a pantser. Before you explore how to choose the right approach for your next book, let's consider whether plotting and pantsing can be mixed to any extent. Okay, we're going to talk about the mix, finally. Can you mix being a pantser and a plotter? For the most part, no, you can't. Okay, you can't mix being a pantser and a plotter. They are opposite approaches. If you have planned out your book, you no longer have the freedom of writing as a true pantser. However, there are ways you can make something of a hybrid approach as long as you're not totalitarian about your definition of what a pantser is. For example, you might wish to plot in detail certain key moments of your book, but allow yourself the freedom to reach them in whatever way you come up with in the heat of the moment. Okay. Another technique is to outline your story, but try and put it out of your mind and write as a pantser. You only refer back to your outline if you get truly stuck. However, you can argue this is not really pantsing, as the outline will have influenced your thoughts. Why is this clickable? To some extent, even if you're not aware of it. For the most part, it's far simpler to pick an approach, either writing as a plotter or a pantser, and get truly comfortable with it. You can always choose the other approach during a later project. So, in terms of picking whether pantsing or plotting, I think you just don't think. Just don't think and just write. And if you feel like, oh no, I need structure, I can't live with this chaos, then plot. And if you think, oh my gosh, plotting is so organized and strict and limiting, then you try mixing them and see how that goes. But just don't think so much about it like, am I a pantser? Am I a plotter? Which is going to work for me? I have no idea. Can I even be a writer if I can't choose between these two? Just don't think and just enjoy your writing journey. That's what I would say. I was doing hand gestures, but you didn't see me. So, okay, yes. So they didn't really mention the hybrid approach. The hybrid approach is plantser. Not a lot of people talk about plantsing, but I do see a lot of people talk about that they are a little bit of a planner and then they are a little bit of a pantser. So it's not unusual. And some of these people are published. So it's not an unusual, like, hybrid approach. It doesn't seem to be particularly unusual. And it seems like a lot of pantsers who, people who have started out as pantsing, there have been a lot of pantsers who turned into plantsers because they figured out that they actually benefit from having a little more structure in their writing life. So then they decide to give themselves a teeny bit of an outline. So they are doing exactly what was it? Where was that? Outline your story, but they only refer back to the outline when they get stuck. Or that they have an outline, certain key moments in the book, allow themselves to reach freedom whenever they come up with something in the heat of the moment. So that was like that example that I talked about before of this plotter that I talked to on Discord about what did they do if they come up with like a new idea and then they already have this strict outline. Do they allow the outline to be a little bit more flexible? And they said yes, that's what they do. So there are people like that. Anyway, I'm a pantser to the core. So anyway, moving on. How do you know if you should write as a pantser? How do you know? How? Tell me, PJ McNulty, how do we know? Hopefully at this stage of the article, you're equipped with a sound level of knowledge about what plotting and pantsing each entail, and you have all the info you need to choose an option and get started. But what if you can't decide? For the most part, we recommend most writers to take the plotter approach to fiction, at least when they're just starting out. Juggling everything that makes a novel great is hard enough as it is without having to come up with its plot on the fly. However, nothing beats getting hands-on experience and seeing which approach you prefer and which produces better results for you. As writing for novels is time-consuming, why not test the waters by writing a number of short stories, some according to the plotting approach and others according the pantser approach. Oh, come on. Typos. By doing this, you'll have personal first-hand experience to support whichever road you just to take for a full-length novel. You just need to take, I guess. Is that it? Yep, that's it. That's it for this article. How do you know? Yes, well, I do think it's a good suggestion to start out with short stories. And if you do want to experiment with both sides of the world, you can experiment with both sides of the writing world. Write a little short story with some plotting. Write a little short story on the fly. Like someone say, okay, write me a 500-word flash fiction story about a duck crossing the road. Okay, and go. And then you just start writing. You can even time yourself how long it took you to just write. You just write and write and write and write and write. And you just keep moving the story forward. Don't make any sort of moments where characters are just sitting around and doing nothing. You have to have them doing something every single time to keep yourself interested. Anyway, so I think that is good. It is a useful, that's what I'm looking for, a useful suggestion to write these short stories and to experiment to see what works for you. If you want to do that, go ahead and do that. But if you're someone like me, you're already pantser to the core. And if you have never tried plotting a story before, then yes, if you want to try it, you want to dip your toes into the plotting waters, then you can do that. But if you're someone who has tried it in the past and has not worked for you, then don't do it. Just keep on pantsing and live your great pantsing life. There's nothing dangerous about pantsing, let me tell you. So I did try plotting once, and I couldn't write that story for 2 years because I just felt so limited and caged and everything, and just trapped in I can't do anything outside of this. What am I going to do? Writer's block, writer's slump was at an all-time high. And then I thought, I really want to write this story about magical gems. So I am going to write the story about the magical gems. I am going to keep the characters. I am going to keep the sort of basic idea. It was a 4-book series idea I had. So a basic idea of the 4-book series, what is going to happen in each book, just the basic idea. And I'm going to keep some of the lore that I had already created. And then I'm just going to write. I am just going to write and see what happens. And I also plugged the books into a personal nano challenge. So I set up a month, whatever day that I started, I just set up a month for 50K. So, and then, you know what that did? I wrote 4 books in 2.5 months after not writing them at all for 2 years. So, either it was all that brewing in my head and I just exploded all out, but forcing myself to write within a 1-month time frame and forcing myself to write 50K also did help me squeeze out those books, and I quite like how they turned out. They do need to be edited. There's things going on all over the place, and I don't know how I'm going to edit 4 books to make sure they are all connected as the series yet, but that's a problem for me in the future, just for future me, which future me is not going to think, but I mean, that's the way things are. So if you should or should not write a pantser, if you want to experiment, go ahead and do it. And I think their suggestion to take these short stories ideas is good. Yeah. Anyway, that's the end of this article. So this is the end of the article. The very end of the article. There's nothing else here, okay? So we don't know when this article was published. There's nothing in the URL either. So I have no idea when it was published. But anyway, what'd you think of this article? Do you think it was a good, helpful article? I, for one, had a lot of disagreeing type of tone to take on this article, because pantsing is not a dangerous thing. And there are no, yes, there are, I don't know, issues, to work, to work through, there are issues. But you can work through them, and you can find solutions that can work for you. And it's not going to be the end of the world. So, anyway, are you a pantser? Are you a plotter? Do you have a wall full of sticky notes? Or do you have moments where the story just starts writing itself, as pantsing for me does sometimes, and some of the people who have pantsed have said that. Anyway, this article needs some fixing, as in typos. It didn't say anything particularly weird, except suggesting that pantsing is the end of the world somehow. But I guess we'll let that slide. But selfpublishing.com might be worth looking at other articles on this site. Pantser, plotter, and plantser, the 3 dominant types of writers. So this is the first article looking up about pantsing and writing advice and stuff like that, that I've actually seen someone say plantser, because I have previously had to explain it. So I'm just going to breeze through this beginning part too. What is a pantser? And they say flies by the seat of their pants, meaning they don't plan out anything in their story and very little. So that is true, yes. And freedom is important. Saying the same thing as other articles. What is this book cover over here? It's so pretty. This pretty book cover over here. They don't need or want a detailed scene by scene outline. In fact, the writing style for a first draft or senior book. Senior book? What's a senior book? It's partly about discovering the story as they write it. They get lost. They like to get lost. They like to let their main characters and imagination lead them to a surprising finished product. And then a plotter is someone who plans their novel, outlining their novel before writing. Extremely important. Essential to the writing process. It keeps the story structure intact. Plotters value knowing what's going to happen in their story before writing it. They want clarity. A plan gives them energy and intention. It saves them a lot of time when they do write their book and also when they revise. Okay, what's a plantser? So the author of this article is saying that they are a plantser. Do a little bit of both. A plantser could be someone who before writing writes a synopsis and comes up with the important details that drive their story ideas. They could be the kind of writer that enjoys planning the subplots, character sketches, character arcs, but during the writing of the novel goes rogue for some chunks of the story. They like a taste of writing on the seat of their pants, but not all of it. And then the author talks about their strategy. This is not what I want to get into. Okay. That was like my intro. Pantser, pros and cons. The pros. The pantsers have the freedom to take their novel in any direction they want. They love the blank page. No, we do not. We do not. Nobody, no writer has ever, I don't think any writers like the blank page. If you love the blank page, you are weird. But anyway, you do you. Tell me why you love the blank page if you do love the blank page. I do not. That's why I try so very hard not to have a blank page. I have some little notes after it, after whatever. The thrive on the thrill of the ideas that come as they type. They also have flexibility. They're not stuck following an outline. So if they don't like a character, they can simply kill him. If they don't like the way their plot is going, they can change it. If I don't like a character, I don't know, I just don't write him. I don't put him so deep into the plot that I have to actually use the plot to execute him, but I just don't include them in the story anymore. And if I like the name, I use the name elsewhere, recycle them. The cons, however, having no plan or very little plan makes it easier to get stuck. I try not. I do things so that I don't get stuck, okay? And if they get stuck, they have to come up with a way to dig themselves out of writer's block rather than following an outline that leads them in the right direction. When this happens, pantsers often abandon old projects for new ones, leaving multiple unfinished novels in their wake. You know, I feel like multiple unfinished novels isn't just a pantser thing. I feel like people who are planners also have multiple unfinished novels. I mean, I think it's a little bit unfair to say that pantsers have multiple unfinished novels, as if planners don't have that. But anyway, they have to come up with ways to dig themselves out of writer's block. As if to say planners don't have writer's block. I think all writers at some point in their lives suffer from big bouts of writer's block. And maybe that's because the story they're working on doesn't interest them anymore, or because they are suffering from imposter syndrome, or because, I don't know, they've plotted themselves or written themselves into a corner and they don't feel like they want to continue. Or they're just feeling creative burnout. I mean, you can get writer's block for so many different reasons. It's not just because that you're a pantser, so that's a weird thing for you to say. Why? The pantsing approach, writing with no direction, likely means there will be lots of rewriting since these types of writers usually take a vague idea and run with it. Yes, we do that, but I don't know if it has a lot of rewriting. I mean, there is only one novel that I'm actually having to, rewrite, and this is because this novel wasn't very well structured. Very well, not structured, it was well structured, I think, but it was just not the story I wanted to tell. And I hadn't figured that out at the first time that I was writing it. And so after getting developmental editing, then I realized, you know what? I don't know if this is the story I want to tell with this character. What exactly do I want to tell here? So I had to figure that out. And that's why I'm rewriting it. But anyway, then it's not because I'm a pantser, I don't think. Like, I probably would have, if I was a plotter, I probably would have plotted in the same way that I pantsed the story the first time. It would be the exact same plot, and I still might want to rewrite it. So, I don't know. While fun in the moment, this can lead to lots of plot holes, which means rewriting a lot of it is almost guaranteed. I don't think so. I mean, there's only one story of mine, and then I have a bunch of stories that I don't feel will need any rewriting. I mean, I like the way it is and it makes sense and everything. I just, a little bit of plot holes here and there, but not a lot of rewriting. Pantsers will have to eventually look at plot structure and outlines. They just do it after the first draft is done. That can be overwhelming. I think of it as like having a bunch of puzzle pieces out on the table and I'm putting it together. So it's actually not overwhelming. It's just part of the process for me. So maybe if it's your first time, it might feel overwhelming, but think of it like as a puzzle, and you have all these pieces. You poured out all the pieces of the puzzle onto the table, and you're just now figuring out how to put it together. That's what happens. So think of it like that, and to see how you feel. In novel writing, too much editing can lead to burnout, and I'm not sure why I started sounding like a cat. And manuscript abandonment. The rewriting, although inevitable for every type of writer, is especially steep for a pantser. Not sure why you were saying it like that. I think it's not just like it's steep for a pantser particularly, but that it's steep for, like, if you're a new writer, it's going to be steep anyway. So it doesn't matter if you're a pantser or a plotter or a pantser. So, too much editing can lead to burnout and manuscript abandonment. I don't know why you were saying this and what evidence you were basing it off of as. Is this your personal experience? Because just because you're a pantser and you're editing a lot, I mean, I think plotters edit a lot too, don't they? Just because they have an outline doesn't mean it's their savior or something. It doesn't mean an outline isn't like the golden ticket to ultimate first draft success, right? So you're still going to have to do a lot of editing, I would think, anyway. So that's what they say about pantser pros and cons. I'm like, I don't know about like it's specific to pantsers, or are you just talking about newbie writers in general? Okay, so why is there so much written for pros and cons of pantsers and so little for plotters? Like, what is that? Like, why? Anyway, okay. Plotters are superior somehow? I don't know. But look at how much they have written for pantser. Look at all this. All this. It's all this. And some more down there. All of that. All that. All of that. Plotter pros and cons. Pros. Plotters, having planned out their novel ahead of time, know what's going to happen before they write it. This makes it easier to bust writer's block. It's harder to get stuck when you know what's going to happen next. Plotters also tend to get their novels written faster, or at least more smoothly. That's interesting, because I just I guess not. So I read an article that said pantsers get started faster, but I guess plotters get the novel written faster. But I don't know if that has anything to do with being a plotter or a pantser. Writing your novel fast has nothing to do with that. It has to do with like your skill level, or like, you know, how much experience you have in writing, or if you're a newbie writer or what. Isn't that what fast writing, I mean, how fast can you type, you know? How fast can you transform your ideas into words and then into your typey fingers? That's what makes your novel writing faster. You don't have plotter or pantser. What do you think? What do you guys think? Cons. Plotters are confined to their plans, meaning if they do get stuck or want to change something, they often have to redo their whole outline. And I can tell you from experience, redoing an entire outline is not fun. So that's what the author is saying. Well, that sucks for you. Redoing an entire outline is not fun. And that is the con of the plotter. Oh, really? There isn't anything else? There is nothing else? That is the only con? The only two cons are that you're confined to your plans. And you might have to redo your entire outline. I would say another con, some plotter talked about this before, like they start plotting and they start thinking about the lore and everything, and then they just can't stop just world building. Like if you're writing a fantasy novel, just start world building, and you can like world build forever, thinking about all the aspects of the world. And then you get stuck just doing that because you're plotting the story and you need to figure out all the aspects of the world in order to create this completed world. And then you just get stuck for years and years and years. Instead of being a pantser and you just start writing and you just fill in the holes during editing. So you already have like a first draft done, and the plotter over there is still plotting and figuring out the lore. So that could be a con, right? Plotters. Right? What do you think? I've seen some people with outlines that look like the outline itself could already be a book, even though it's bullet points. It's so extensive, so you could be stuck outlining for eternity, just trying to make everything work, everything tying together, all the stuff and little things and the details, and then it just stuck there. I've heard of people talking about like, oh yeah, there was this one person on Discord that said they have this outline, this really great outline that they're so proud of, but now they're afraid to start writing it because they feel like that they feel afraid, they feel like they might ruin it. So having that fear of like ruining something they feel is so complete, that could be a con of plotting. I mean, there's so many that I can think of, and I'm a pantser. If I can think of all of these, surely you can think of some of those you could have thought of written. You could have put those in here, so and stuff. Expanded the plotter section. Why is the pantser section, why is the pantser section so cons? There's so much con in the pantser. Why? Come on. There are more cons. I just talked about them. There are more cons. Add those. Add the things that I just talked about. Okay? If you're a plotter and you're listening to this, okay, right now, tell me if some of the cons, like I've mentioned some, the article mentioned some. Tell me some if there's some that aren't mentioned that I don't know about, or the article didn't mention. Tell me some if there are others. Okay, just tell me some if there are others. So, and then they go on and all this, and the rest of this article is so long because of all the comments, and the person who wrote the article keeps responding, which I guess is good. So this was first written, looks like it was first written in 2014. See, because this was the first comment. May 15, 2014 was the first comment. So I'm guessing it's written then. It doesn't say when it was written, but that is when I would guess that it was written, 2014. So it's been 10 years. It's been 10 years. So you can edit this article, definitely. If you want to help people, add those other cons that I mentioned. And there are probably others. So anyway, that's all I wanted to react to this article, because I read another article talking about the pros and cons of plotter versus pantser. And so when I found this other one, I thought, that's interesting. They didn't mention the pros and cons of a pantser, which I think is interesting. I feel like there would be pros and cons to plantsers too. So if you are a plantser, tell me what kinds of pros and cons have you come up against? The cons that you've come up against and the pros that you have discovered. The delightful pros. Now we've come to the very end of this pantser article compilation. And honestly, I don't really know what I'm going to say at the end. But I have this feeling that somehow people don't think pantsers are real writers. But look at Stephen King. He's a pantser. And look how many books that he's published and how much success he's had. And he has a publisher. So that means being a pantser is valid. And yet, for some reason, across the board, I feel like people don't like pantsers. They don't think pantsering is a real thing, or that you can't just pants a story. You have to have some type of structure. And yes, you do have to have some type of way of organizing your information and stuff like that, but doesn't mean that I don't think you have to have organization. Like, if you want to, you can, and that doesn't make you any less of a pantser. Pantser, it's a process, being a pantser. You're different from a planner in that you don't have a sort of a structured beginning. I feel like I need to look up articles about how to edit a novel as a pantser, if there is such a thing. I don't even know. So, if you are a pantser, I would say just keep at it. Never mind what these articles say. If they say if you're a pantser, you have to have index cards, or you have to have some type of structure before you start writing, even though you were a pantser, because that doesn't make sense. Like, what are you doing? You don't have to listen to these articles. If you found a pantsering way that works for you, you don't have to change it. I mean, like the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, in the end, just claim, I am a pantser and it works. Look at Stephen King. And just keep at it. And, I talked about some ways that I keep notes, and you can do things like that, or you don't have to. But yeah, don't listen to what people say about, like, pantsering not being the correct in quotes way of writing, or not being real, or I hear some people who were pantsers, but they've turned into planners, talking about how being a pantser was a very amateurish way of writing and they weren't getting anything done. Well, maybe they just weren't pantsers from the start. They were always planners, and if you think that maybe being a pantser isn't working out for you, then you can try planning. I mean, it's okay to switch things up sometimes. And I tried. I may have talked about it in one of those clips. I mean, I didn't watch all of them through. It's 2025, and I recorded some of those quite some time back, so I didn't look through all of them. But I'm pretty sure I probably talked about that. I tried planning once, and then it didn't work for me. So you can do that. You can try and see. You know, if you have the time and the mental leeway in your noggin, that you can try that, but you don't have to if you don't feel like you need to. So yeah, anyway, that is the end of this mega video. I did all kinds of things in this video. I tried some transitions, I tried adding text, I tried adding little clips in the middle and the end. I tried adding my avatar in. I have to find someone to make a moving one for me. Apparently I'm turning into a VTuber. So yeah, all kinds of things. This experiment, actually, this Pantser compilation experiment, leads up to my deep dive video, because I wanted to make sure that what I could do in what I could do with my video editing skill set and not having to go through such big learning curves. So anyway, that's the end of this giant video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was nice, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. And finally, I can say you will hear me in the next video. Please keep hydrated, and the fox is finally out.